This is episode 94 of Off Script with Trish Glose, intimate interviews with interesting people. Joining me today via Skype, I have Ken Trautman. Hello, Ken. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. You are the president and CEO of People's Bank.
That's correct.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit before we get into today's podcast topic, which is all things financial. We're going to be talking about some things today, and Ken, I'm hoping, is going to not only put some things into perspective for us, but also help us out. Ken, where are you from originally?
I'm actually an Oregon native, born in Grants Pass and migrated all the way to Medford.
Awesome. And you got into banking when? I'm assuming you've been doing this your entire life.
Yeah, back in the late 70s. That was another recession with high inflation.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So how did you start in this business of banking? Were you a teller? Like, how did that start for you?
Well, I was an accidental banker. There was a recession going on. I'm an accountant, business administration major from college. The economy went down, so I got into banking just to kind of bridge a down market back in 79, and now 41 years later, I'm at the end of my career. So
yeah. So obviously you're moving up within this world of banking. Now you're the head honcho over there at People's Bank.
Yeah, my partner and I, we started People's Bank back in 1998. Mike Sickles was the chairman of the board and the CEO. I was the president. We had 7 of us. We've grown from there. Now we have 6 branches and 110 employees.
Nice. Awesome. How does one start a bank? How do you even go down that road?
Well, first of all, you got to be stubborn. You need a lot of different things to happen. You've got to have a vision of what you want to do. You've got to be able to put a team together that can run a bank. You've got to have directors who are willing to risk everything to help start the bank. And then you got to have local investors that are willing to fund the bank. After all this comes together, then you ask the regulators to approve your charter and you are open for business.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a very important role that you play in the community. You're essentially, I don't even want to say essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, you're taking care of my money, right?
I hope so.
Okay.
If not, I will be.
I hope so too. Let's get into, I guess, the reason why we are here today. Essentially, we're talking about COVID-19 and this unemployment claims, and people right now don't have jobs. They're not making money. So I don't even really know where to start, Ken. I mean, what does the current situation right now look like in this financial world? To me, it's incredibly scary.
You know, it's things have changed so fast. Just trying to keep up with all of the new offerings that are available has been a bit of a challenge. 30 days ago, I wrote a letter to the shareholders of People's Bank telling them about our year. And really, 30 days ago, it was unbelievably good. Unemployment was low. The businesses were doing very well. Now, a week later, last 10 days, things have changed dramatically. We have, when you look at Oregon, businesses that have been forced to shut down. The city of Ashland, that whole community has been just devastated with the loss of Shakespeare, the restaurants, the motel business, and we've got a branch in that town. So things are different. There's no question. We're trying to figure out how to navigate through the changes. We've been given some tools by our regulators and by our Congress and president to try and help us through the process. The challenge has been trying to understand what those tools are, how they apply, who qualifies, and how we get the money out. So that's the stage we're in right now. A week ago Friday, we were given approval to make what's called the SBA 7A PPP loans, which is payroll protection plan loans. And it's a broad-based program they put together on a very short notice using the 7A qualification guidelines with some exceptions. So our challenge was trying to understand those rules and get the money out to our customers as soon as we can. So a week ago Friday at 12:01 a.m., our staff were going online with the SBA portal to get approvals for our customers on these loans. The way the loans work, they're fairly simple, I guess, in the application. The money is qualified based on your payroll, and that is all payroll, including health benefits, any leave you would have, your 401k. It excludes the salary that an individual would make over 100,000, but you accumulate all that, come up with an average monthly salary, times that times 2.5 times, and you get the qualified amount of a loan. So that was the first step we had to figure out how to do, which I think we now understand that. What we didn't know is what our thought process was, is we'll get the approval, we'll have the money reserved for our clients, and then over the next 30 days, we'll disperse it. And the reason that was important to us is think about a restaurant that's been closed. They don't have employees right now. They can't even hire back employees till the governor has given them permission to open. The way the payback and the forgiveness of the PPP loans works, you take the next 8 weeks of salary and other covered benefits and apply those together and determine the amount of forgiveness. 75% of the forgiveness is based on payroll. You have 8 weeks to total this. The guidance came back and said we have to fund the loans we've approved within 10 days. The problem is if a business isn't open yet, it is not allowed to open, the forgiveness portion of their loan goes away. And so we're trying to work through that. We've been champions for our businesses at the national level trying to get an accommodation, but I feel a little sorry for our Treasury and our SBA departments because they were given a task to do almost overnight with no guidance, and we've never had a set of rules to work on. So we're trying to navigate through it.
Well, I heard this morning, this whole crisis, everything from the financial end of it, the unemployment end of it, to the medical side of it, it's like learning how to fly a plane while you're flying the plane.
Or swimming by being thrown overboard.
Right.
Yeah. It's very, very difficult. And I think the key is everybody's trying to do the right thing at every level. You know, they understand the emergency. The need to shut our businesses down makes sense. The question will be when they open up again. I got a feeling we're going to err on the safe side and probably keep them closed longer than most of us would have thought. Initially, we thought April might be what we're looking at and open in May. I'm hearing now it might be the whole month of May. So trying to navigate through this uncertain time, especially if you're a business owner and your whole livelihood is activity. But if you're an employee of that business, how are you impacted and what do you do?
Right. I mean, it hurts my heart just to think about it.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to get to really quickly, you wrote an editorial. This was dated on March 25th. The don't want an economic collapse, keep paying bills during COVID-19 uncertainty. And you write, events have unfolded quickly across the nation, but rest assured this event is not similar to the Great Recession of 2008. When looking at the banking industry as a whole, we have entered this period of uncertainty in a position of great strength. So I was thinking about this morning. If I were unemployed tomorrow and I'm having all these bills, how do you keep paying your bills if you don't have income coming in? As my mama used to tell me, you can't get blood from a turnip. So like, what do you do right now?
Well, you've got two classes of people right now. You've got those that are employed still. You have those that are actually employed and not working. Their employers are paying them for the time that they're off. That group hasn't been significantly impacted financially, but they're being told really with everything you listen on the national news and really anything you read, that there's forgiveness going, that you don't really need to pay bills. Then you have the group that really is impacted. They've been laid off. They have no income coming from their employer. They're on unemployment, which has had its own disasters trying to get up and running and working efficiently because the volumes are so great. But they're going to get checks, and hopefully they're all getting those immediately. And I think they've added to the amount of unemployment they're going to get and extend the time period. That group has to worry about two things first: their family, which means they have food and they're taking care of their health, and then the bills they have afterwards. This is a unique situation. That group is not going. They're going to be the ones talking to their lender, their landlord, and letting them know of the situation they're in, which is really critical. I think communication now is vital. The other group that has no impact financially, and they're also the second group that's still working and getting income is going to get a federal stimulus check probably this week, somewhere around $1,200 a person, $2,400 a family with $500 per kid. So they're going to get some pretty good money. That's kind of what I was talking about in my editorial. That group needs to make sure that they keep the economy moving. Pay the bills they have, spend money like they normally would do at our local businesses so they have a chance to generate income. We would never want to say, and I hope my message wasn't I didn't miswrite it such that we're implying that everybody needs to do that first. You have to make sure you've got food, safety, and your family's taken care of. Once that's met, then we have other obligations that we need to watch out for.
It sounds like you have to be strategic, right? So pay the things that you have to do, groceries, that kind of thing. And then with those other bills, it almost sounds like, should we reach out to, our landlords or our cell phone bill and say, hey, I can only make half the payment this month? I mean, is that a good way to go?
I would. That's going to be a challenge. Now you got to remember that the whole world is going through this at the same time. So you might have trouble getting hold of your landlord or your phone company. Be patient. I think they understand what's going on. The state, when they sent out guidance to the banks, they said, we want you to do some things that you would normally not do. We want you to not collect any late fees on loans for clients that might be late. We want you to waive any overdraft fees your clients might have as they're trying to manage through the system. We want you to waive ATM fees with clients, regardless of where they go, so they have access to cash. And do all these things and do it as to the best of your ability. And by the way, don't report any of your clients to the credit bureau as being past due. This is a unique time. Don't wreck their credit on something they had nothing to do with. And we're all trying to accomplish that. And in addition, then learn the different programs that are out there. We've reached out to our customers and we've offered deferrals on payments for up to 90 days if they want. We'll do interest only if they want. We'll talk to them whatever the situation is. The key, though, the reason I said it's different than the Great Recession, if you remember back in the Great Recession, nobody wanted to talk to you until you were past due. And sometimes they encouraged you to be 60 days past due. This time around, you really need to let everybody know early on. We, from an accounting side, banks have got different things they have to do with their problem loans. But if we get a head start with a customer before they're past due, there's many things we can do to help them out.
Okay. And it also sounds like from the Great Recession, you're saying that we're in a better position now than we were in 2008?
Well, we're relying as a nation on the banking system to kind of work us through this. Back in the Great Recession, banks had very little equity, had reduced equity. So some banks, let's say, have 8%. We have a minimum amount we need by regulation to have to run. Our equity covers our losses. So a bank that had 8% in the Great Recession probably has 12% today. That's a huge cushion that allows you to work with your clients. And that's what I talked about. We went into this with really no past dues, no problem credits, no foreclosures that we were working on, and a lot of collateral. And so that is a perfect scenario to go into a disaster with. Now the key is, how do we manage through that, and how do we be responsive and help those customers that need help?
What did we learn from the Great Recession, if anything?
What I learned is that the government and I think the banks were all really slow in communicating with their clientele. Nobody knew what the rules were. And then when you tried to call and find out, nobody answered their phones because they were so overwhelmed. So I think this time around, if you watch what's going on, there's a lot of early dialogue at every level, from our state, from our federal. And then we have processed that at the banks. We're trying to reach out way in advance to our clients that we think could be impacted. And we hope we're available and have enough phone lines to answer calls from those we have not reached out to this time also.
Yeah, I will say it's nice to hear you and other businesses kind of giving that support for whether you're, renting a business space or renting an apartment, that there is this idea that we are all in this together. And there's a little bit of, it's okay, don't worry about this month's rent. I mean, that's really happening right now across the nation.
Yeah, it is. I think this is unique, though, where you've had everybody impacted by this. And if it's not financially, then it's emotionally. You're going through things right now that you probably have never gone on. You're at home. Mm-hmm. We've been home, for 3 weeks now?
Right.
With mental contact. And a lot of people, that's not the way we operate. We tend to be a very social community. We go out, we visit our restaurants, we visit our businesses, we visit our family. We haven't been able to do that at the same level.
Right. You also encourage folks to not consolidate cash at home, right?
Correct. We saw this during the Great Recession.
Yeah.
The first thing when people got worried is they come into the bank, give me $200,000 in cash. I'm going to stick it in a safe at home and weather it. that worries me because there are still a lot of bad guys out there waiting to take advantage of folks if they can. The financial systems, it's actually very strong. You've got FDIC insurance, really up to the 250,000 per account, which could actually go up to a couple million. Right now, the other thing that Congress is considering, working with the Treasury and FDIC, is how to do unlimited guarantee of non-interest bearing demand deposits. So just to take that risk of fear away as my money safe. So I'm by far more comfortable that folks leaving their money in their bank or credit union would be better off than pulling a lot of cash out. You've got such a huge electronic transmission capability for accessing money with debit cards and person-to-person, PayPal, all kinds of different things right now that you don't need a lot of cash. And you can't really go anywhere and spend it. So be really careful how much you hold on hand.
Yeah, I think in a crisis, we have those visions from, the Great Depression time of lines at the bank and the windows closing and people not being able to get their cash. We have that vision, but things are so much different now when it comes to your money and where it is and how safe it is.
It's all about paper. I just didn't realize that toilet paper was number one. Banks were number two.
Right? Crazy. It's crazy. But we are, as we've talked about, as a lot of us mentioned, this is just a unique time and we're learning things every single day as we go. And also on the financial side, we are starting to see those stimulus checks coming in to individuals and to employers. What should people do with those? We've kind of touched on it a little bit, but what should folks do with that money that they're getting from the government?
Well, again, back to that two classes. If you're not working, that money is going to help you survive. That's going to help with your food and medicine and all the things you need for your household. It might help pay your rent or your lease or your mortgage payment, but those are in the order. If you're not in SS or not actually out of work and you're getting your payroll, this is extra money, and you're going to have to decide how you want to use that. Are you going to stick it in a savings account and save it for later? Are you going to pay down debt? Are you going to hold it in case there's more of a downturn in the economy? There's those decisions that people will have to make on that one. And I don't necessarily have a great suggestion there because I'm not sure how long the impact is going to be of the down market. So I think it's a good idea to have some extra funds on hand, not necessarily cash, but have it in the bank so you can have access to it. But don't do that at the extent of paying your bills. You're going to have to keep those current and make it up somewhere along the line. So it's better not to let it get behind if you can help.
Okay. And we haven't really discussed this at all. I haven't really talked about this topic with anyone. Those who are working, let's say everyone in the house is working. What should those folks be doing? How can those who are employed help out right now?
Well, when you take a look at our restaurants, they've had to close, but some of them are doing takeout. Occasionally, order takeout from them. Help them out if you can. I think a lot of folks are helping their nonprofits. You're seeing some really good success with Access and other nonprofits trying to help out in the community. You can't go out and really do a whole lot. You can't take a vacation. You can't go out to the movies. So you're going to probably be figuring out how to take care of things at home. We might see a little bit of a spending binge on some of the things we wanted, that big flat screen TV maybe that we needed to see. But that should happen after everything else has been taken care of and when you truly consider the money to have to be excess.
Okay, because it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but just for us, I know personally, getting some takeout 2-3 times a week, is that helping? Is that doing something?
I think it really is. With the bank, all our employees are working. We've had no cases of anybody being ill. We've had to separate, though. We've made some significant changes. Our lobbies are closed, but our drive-ups are open. Mm-hmm. You can come into a lobby by appointment just to make sure that we keep good spacing. But because our employees are here and they can't really go anywhere, we've ordered food in. We've had customers that have cookies. So we're all gaining weight. That's for darn sure. But so we're trying to help those work with those clients of ours that could do things for us in the way of food and entertainment. We actually are taking another step on this crisis that we really hadn't anticipated. We are required as a bank to have a succession plan. and a disaster recovery plan. And the succession plan says, okay, what happens if the CEO dies overnight in a car wreck? How do you run the bank? So we decided, why leave a good disaster unused? I woke up one morning and came into work and told staff that I passed away from the virus. Our chief financial officer passed away, and our head of operations is on a ventilator. How are you guys going to run it? That afternoon, they had a board meeting. I got on the phone with the board and said, here's what's happening. We have just now had a disaster. You have your succession plan. Let's see how it works. And so we've been living through this now for 3 days. We're going to run it for another 5. And it's the hardest thing in the world for me because now I have to shut up. I have to listen. I found I have a tremendous staff. They're really knowledgeable. They want to do the right things, and our plan is working. But there are some holes in it. We found out too much of our control is in too few people. That includes our codes and our security. And who would have thought a disaster like this that could come and actually devastate a business? So we're using that. That's a real life tool that we'll be able to put in our file and say, here's what we did, here's what we learned, here's what we'll change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a good practice for lots of different businesses out there right now.
I would say so. What you find out is, if just take your home. If one of the spouses does all the work on the computer and has all the codes and has them memorized, what happens if that person's gone?
Right.
How do you do what you do? So we're looking at that at my house. We're making sure that we both understand what we're doing and how we do it. And it's going to make a big difference for us.
Oh, that means I have to start paying the bills now, Ken.
You got to look at that. That's true.
Dang it. No, it's a good way of thinking. And I actually, my husband and I had this conversation yesterday, just what happens or what would happen if, again, tomorrow I'm out of a job? Like, what would we do? Like, you really have to ask yourself those questions and figure out your game plan, right?
Yeah, and and bad things happen rapidly. They don't give you time to react and plan. So you want to do that in advance and make sure everything is taken care of. And hopefully you only have to do that for a short time period and things get back to normal, or you get a new job. But this is something that our kids are going to look back on 30 years from now and say, do you remember when? And they're going to tell their kids and say, no, it could never happen. Let's hope it does not happen again.
Okay. So Ken, in closing, we can wrap this up a little bit. What should we be doing right now? If you're unemployed, if you are employed, are there resources out there that people, if you've lost your job, you're going to file for unemployment. Is there anything we should be looking at? Maybe business owners, should they be heading to the SBA's website and getting some tips or some guidance?
Yeah, from the business owner side, make your first call to your bank. If you have not signed up for the PPP program, take a look at it. It doesn't necessarily help self-employed and independent contractors to the same level as other businesses, but self-employed and independent contractors are eligible as of last Friday. We're still waiting for some rules to come out on how to calculate that. But talk to them. They have a lot of different tools to use, not just PPP. We've got the EIDL program, we got other SBA, and then the in-house bank products that we all have to use. So communication is step one. Just try and get through, talk to somebody, tell them what's going on, and see if they can give you some feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like if you're a business owner, your first call is talking to your bank and figuring out your plan for who knows how long this is going to last.
Correct. And I would touch base with them, every couple of weeks to tell them throughout the process. We try to make sure we are in direct contact with our clients as often as we can. Right as of Friday, we had over 500 PPP applications filed at the bank. We had 373 approved through SBA for a little over $61 million. We got another 12 million that we're processing. Our first party was our own customers, but now we're working on the general community. So if your bank isn't in the process or is maxed out, then give us a call. Let us help you. Mm-hmm. The key is take advantage of what's available right now. Let's hope this is a shorter time period, that we're talking about 1 month, no more than 2. When it's over, I think we're going to see a pretty big recovery. People are tired of doing nothing. They're going to have some money. Hopefully, they're going to be employed again. We went into this with a very, very low unemployment rate. We were looking for employees. Coming out of this, we're going to need those same people back again. So let's have everybody be safe and take care, keep your distancing. We want, when it's time to open up, that we're all ready for business again.
Absolutely. Will, one more question for you. You know, I look at all of this money going out from the federal government. Are we going to survive this as a nation?
Oh, I think so. And I was just talking with a bank investor this morning that's in New York, and his question was, he remembers he was a little kid during the Depression, or the recession of 79, 80, and 81, where interest rates went up to 21%, and they were changing daily. I was a brand new banker then, running a note window, and I just couldn't believe the changes going on. But you know what? It didn't last a long time. It only impacted people who were heavy borrowers, and we worked our way through it. This one we will work through. There potentially could be some inflationary issues we have to deal with. I think our government has learned some lessons on how to manage through that. So I have a pretty positive outlook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did a podcast with a historian last week, and the one thing I learned through our history, whether it's a pandemic or a recession or a depression, we survive them. We survive.
We do. You know, do you have time for a short story?
Of course. I always have time for a short story.
You know, we get so focused on what's impacting us and our employees that we forget about our little four-legged friends. And I've got labs at home. And last night, I got a little bit of back problems. I woke up at 3 a.m. and I went and sat in my recliner. And my yellow lab came up, and he never does this, but he climbed up in my lap, put his head on my cheek, and was there for just probably 30 seconds. And I think he recognized the stress we're all going for. And he got down, and he was happy. And you know what? When it was done, I felt better. It just made me feel very good. So
yes.
We got to remember those little guys out there that are really attuned to our emotions and what's going on, and thank them for being our friends too.
I have an Italian Mastiff at home who is very much in tune to our anxiety level, so much so that he'll just come over and sit next to us and lean, which 140 pounds. So, but it's comforting, right? It's really comforting right now to have, and they know when we're stressed out.
Yeah, they do. They're pretty special.
Well, I'm really glad. What's your dog's name?
It's Ruger.
Ruger. So Ruger climbed in your lap this morning at
90-pound yellow lab. And when I could finally catch my breath, it was so cute. And he really didn't want anything. He just wanted to let me know that things are okay. And he went back to his bed, went to sleep.
Ruger, thanks, buddy. That's such a great story, and that's a perfect story to close this with. Thank you so much for taking the time out. I am sure glad People's Bank is out there. I mean, you guys definitely are in this community and supporting your customers and supporting these local businesses, and that just makes me feel real good.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
And if you are listening to this podcast on Apple's podcast app and you like it, please subscribe, rate, and review. It helps other people find us. We're also on Stitcher, Google Play, and SoundCloud, and you can watch the video version of this podcast on YouTube and at ktvl.com. One more time, Ken from People's Bank, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for the information. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you.